We're rolling into week 8. We know got a lot of teams that are off this week. You need upside. We're going to help you figure out who it is. And Chris, I've been telling you, guys like DK, you are just need to be higher on.
I mean, okay, fine. I guess you're right. He's basically all the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers have, right?
No, look, I'm talking about Chimera DK, the Titans, Cam Ward. Come on, that offense ready to explode. All right, well, maybe not. Look, let's keep it real. Well, let's look at the matchups. Let's look at how these players are doing. We're going to go through every wide receiver that might matter for you in week 8. Now, there are 6 teams that are going to be on bye. That's the Lions, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, Raiders, Rams, and Jaguars. The must-start list for this week, not too long, but you should feel pretty good if you've got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, or Rashee Rice. Before we get to this week's matchups, quick reminder, if you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please do so right now. It takes 1 second. It helps us out a lot. We are on the way to 100K. Help us reach our goal. Let's kick it off with a Thursday night matchup of the Vikings taking on the Chargers. So yeah, Justin Jefferson continues to prove that it really does not matter who his quarterback is. You got him. And look, Jordan Addison, for his part, is looking, I won't say quarterback proof, but he continues to put up numbers week after week.
He continues to put up numbers week after week, and I really like Jordan Addison this week. You look at it, Chargers play zone 78% of the time. He actually has a higher first read percentage against zone and yards per out run than even Jefferson does. I mean, they're very close here, but he is slightly ahead of them against zone. So this is a great matchup for Jordan Addison. I think he's got to be solid this week.
Yeah, and a lot of rumblings about what the Vikings are going to do short-term, long-term at quarterback. I don't want to just say start Jordan Addison no matter what, but agree he's got to be a solid pick this week. And then it's almost tough to choose which Charger receiver do you like more because it changes on a weekly basis. Last week, they were all good. What about this week against the Vikings?
Yeah, going to be tough here. I'm going to start with Quentin Johnston. I think I'm just going to say he's an upside flex. I mean, he did score last week, but only 6 targets, which sounds like a good number until you realize Justin Herbert threw the ball 48 times and he was 4th on the team in targets. But look, the Vikings, Isaiah Rodgers, he's a top 25 corner according to PFF, but they do also have Byron Murphy on the other side who's not so good. So there is potential here. I'll just say Ladd and Keenan. Like the Vikings, I know AJB and Devonta Smith just lit them up, but this is still a good secondary, still a good defense. I'll just say they're both solid. I don't expect the Chargers to have to throw the ball close to 50 times this week.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily going to be one of the higher scoring games of the week. But I will say, though, Minnesota, you think good defense, they are. They pressure the quarterback, but they allow the second most yards per target to wide receivers. The problem is those targets get spread out, and now all of a sudden we got a rookie tight end who's getting involved. So I think Ladd is still solid. He's got that floor. Keenan Allen, just when we were forgetting about him, showed that he is solid as well. Quentin Johnston's the one I'm a little more worried about. He always has touchdown upside, so also a flex. And on Sunday, let's start with Dolphins at the Falcons. Jalen Waddle, among many Dolphins who had a tough time this past week. And his quarterback continues to get worse as the season goes on. And so can Waddle pull something out for us this matchup?
I think he can. I mean, it's risky because the Falcons are tough versus wide receivers, but you look at it, they play single high most of any team in the league 72% of the time. This year versus single high is a 0.3 targets per out run and a 37% first read percentage. I think this is a bounce back spot for him. I don't expect a big game this week because this is a tough Falcons defense, and who knows what's going on in Miami right now. I mean, it's just an absolute dumpster fire there, but I'm going to say Waddle's still solid this week.
Yeah, the depressed Dolphin in me just wants to ignore this whole offense. But look, the objective fantasy football analyst in me also wants to mostly ignore Jalen Waddle this week. The Falcons are legit defense, especially against wideouts. They allow the second fewest yards per target to wide receiver. And we saw just last week, Juwan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne did absolutely nothing against this defense. They haven't given up a lot of big games to wide receivers. And again, your quarterback needs to actually get you the ball. That's the thing. It's just this whole team vibe here. I mean, they're just waiting. It's a matter of time before McDaniel gets the axe. It's going to happen. So he's a flex just because he gets so many targets, but not feeling it in this matchup. Now, for the Falcons last week, a little switcheroo. You know, it looked like it was all Drake London, forget Darnell Mooney. So, of course, this week, Darnell Mooney somehow outproduced Drake London, even though Drake London got more targets. What are we getting this week?
Well, I don't feel great here. I know it's the Dolphins. You think, oh, man, Dolphins, come on, this is a smash spot. But my worry here is we're going to see kind of what we saw last week and a lot of weeks versus the Dolphins, which is the running backs just going nuts. And by the running backs, I mean Bijan Robinson running for 200 yards this week. Like, they might not need to throw the ball, and that's the problem here. They just don't need to throw the ball a lot because their running game is so good. I don't think the Dolphins are going to force them to be running the ball a lot, but it is a good matchup. So I will say Drake London's solid, although I don't feel great, and Mooney flex.
Yeah, you don't need to throw the ball that much when the other team doesn't score. We'll see what happens, but again, Drake London, don't feel like this is his best game. He's still solid because he gets targeted so much. But look, the Niners had a good game plan. They figured we can take London out of it. Who cares? Throw to Mooney all you want. Throw to Kyle Pitts. I don't know if the Dolphins are that smart. We'll see. But I can't put London too much lower. And Mooney is still just a flex. Like the upside, the massive upside isn't there. And don't forget, if you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy yet, this is the time to do it. Sign up as a new customer and use code ENDGAME in the promo code section when you check out. You'll get up to $1,000 in bonus cash for your first deposit and a free pick. This week, you get a gimme pick, and you take the higher on that, combine it with any other pick you like, and as soon as you play $5 towards any pick, you get another extra $100 in bonus funds added to your account. And of course, it is still Boostober. Get profit boost till the end of the month. So this is the best time to try Underdog if you haven't yet. So the Bears are going to take on the Ravens in Baltimore following their bye this past week. Now, this offense has undergone a little bit of a transformation since their bye week. The Bears, I mean, the past two games, it's been all about the run. It's not been all about Rome Odunze anymore.
No, in fact, his first read percentage has plummeted since the bye week. But I will say this. Ravens run the third most man and the fourth most single high. You look at it against these shells, he's got a 0.41 targets per out run and a 45% first read percentage. The Ravens may be getting healthier coming out of the bye, but I think this is a bounce back spot for Rome Odunze. I'm going to say high end solid this week. And then DJ Moore, Luther Burden, there's just not enough here for these guys, even with bye weeks. I think you got to sit them.
Yeah, like my initial gut reaction here was, I mean, Baltimore, horrible defense, Rome Odunze, great receiver, probably a smash spot. But like you said, under 20% his first read target share the last 2 weeks. It's been all about the run game. I think this game might actually be kind of like a sneaky low scoring game. These teams both want to run the ball first and foremost. So I will say Odunze should still be solid, but, Moore, maybe a flex only because of the matchup. It still is favorable, right? The Ravens do still suck on defense. And Luther Burden, just not enough here. I think he's a sit. And on the other side, Zay Flowers, well, he gets his quarterback back, which is definitely a good thing for him. And this Bears defense, I mean, look, they've improved, but I think you should still feel pretty good about Flowers.
Yeah, I feel fine about him. There's nothing that jumps out to me here that makes you think like, oh, this is a great spot for Zay Flowers. I mean, Kyler Gordon is back, out of the slot. Tyreek Stevenson is still there. Like, the defense has gotten better, but he's got Lamar. He's always got upside. I think he's solid.
Right. Always upside here. Like I said, the matchup, I don't think this is going to be a game where both teams are airing it out, but Flowers is still the guy there getting vast majority of the targets. So definitely solid.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start, sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
Bills taking on the Panthers this week. All right, let's start with the receiving core for Buffalo. We got Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and a bunch of guys that probably aren't really relevant.
Right, I'll just say Khalil Shakir is solid. He's always kind of solid, right? He at least has a decent floor, could score a touchdown. There's nothing about this matchup that scares me off him or makes me feel better about him. And then I will say Keon Coleman, I'm just going to outright sit him. Not only has he not been good since week 1, but he's probably going to get matched up with J.C. Horn. Like, no thanks.
Yeah, I've been outright sitting Keon Coleman all season. No regrets there. Shakir's the only guy of interest here. He won't see a lot of J.C. Horn, mostly playing out of the slot. But again, this is just a guy who you get a pretty decent floor. Don't feel like it's a great game. Dalton Kincaid should be back this week. He's just okay, right? He's just okay. He's a decent flex. All right, now on the Panthers side, this is going to be a little tricky. Bryce Young dealing with a high ankle injury. It's like we're going to see the veteran Andy Dalton slinging it to both Ted McMillan. And now Xavier Legette, who all of a sudden led this team by far in targets last week. So how you feeling about these guys?
I don't feel great. I don't feel like, maybe Andy Dalton will sling it, but he might sling it to the other team here. And, this is the Bills, so yeah, I can't feel great here. I will say, though, I think Ted is going to be lower end solid for me. The Bills' best corner by far is Teron Johnson, but he plays out of the slot. Their outside corners, Tre'Davious White, Christian Benford, not very good. But I don't feel great about Ted with Andy Dalton. I'm going to say risky solid. Then Legette, I'll just say a flex. Again, I can't feel great with Andy Dalton here. Plus, he is going to see a lot of Johnson. So, risky, solid, and a flex for these guys.
I'm going to throw them both as flex options. McMillan has had some good games. Really, other than the 2 touchdown game where he didn't have a lot of yardage, and then that one 100-yard game where he didn't score a touchdown, we haven't seen a massive ceiling. But again, he's not used to catching passes from Andy Dalton. And so, there are concerns here. They may have to pass quite a bit. Like you said, doesn't mean that they'll be effective at it. So a little worried here. I might feel a little better about Legette because I feel he'll get more of those short intermediate targets. He's operating as the Z there, his natural role. But still, I think I'm going to keep them both as flexes. Now let's talk Jets at Bengals. Finally, Jamar Chase back where he belongs as a no doubt must start. Before we talk about the rest of the Bengals, what about Garrett Wilson, right? Missed last week. Not sure what the deal is for this week, and not sure, honestly, with the way this Jets offense looks, how good you can even feel.
You gotta feel good. It's the Bengals. He's all they've got. He's been good this year, even with this terrible Jets offense. So, yeah, if he somehow plays and he's good to go, I think he's got to be a strong start against the Bengals.
Yeah, and look, if it is Tyrod Taylor because they're just done with Justin Fields, or at least temporarily, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, man. I'm going to keep him solid here because I just feel like this is becoming a dysfunctional team as a whole. You just got to wonder exactly what the next step is. And are they even going to risk it with Garrett Wilson this week? That's my concern too. All right, so Chase is elite again, thanks to Joe Flacco. At T. Higgins, now it looks like we can start him. But how good do you feel? What tier does he belong here?
I feel pretty good here. You look at the Jets, they were on the 7th most man and cover 1. He's got a higher first read, targets per route run, and yards per route run than Chase against those covered shells. And look, Sauce, I know he's in the concussion protocol right now, but if Sauce Gardner plays, he's going to be shadowing Chase, which means T. Higgins is going to draw the easier coverage here. I think he's got to be high-end solid.
I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to put Higgins at the bottom of the strong tier. It's actually hard to believe he's getting targeted inside the 10-yard line in that money zone more than Jamar Chase this year. Flacco is going to throw it, of course, to his wideouts. And look, nobody else gets targets here other than Andre Yosevich. He's the distant third. And then Mike Gesicki, the tight end, is out, right? So there's no offense. But really, there's nothing else here. We got a couple of guys who are getting basically all the targets. They can throw it with ease. So if I have T. Higgins, I'm starting him pretty confidently. 49ers taking on the Texans this week. All right, so as far as the 49ers go, it's a guessing game still. Last week, we did see Juwan Jennings play and not do very much. Kendrick Bourne finally didn't do very much, and Rick Pearsall did nothing because he didn't play. So, going down the list for me, let's just assume they're all playing. Who do you have interest in?
Assuming they're all playing, I have interest in Ricky Pearsall. Texans run the 6th most zone 78% of the time. Against zone, he leads the team in first read percentage. He's second in yards per route run. I got to think Jennings is probably going to be the guy who sees the most Derek Stingley Jr. this week. I think it's a good spot for Pearsall. If he plays and he's good to go, I'm going to say solid. I'm not starting Jennings or Bourne anymore.
No, I think regardless of whether Pearsall plays or not, I think the Kendrick Bourne ride is pretty much over. But look, just right here, right now this week, this Texans defense is legit. I have enough concern. I'll say the only guy I might be interested in is Pearsall, but just as a flex here because, is he really even 100%? And then, like I said, just that upside I think is going to be capped. And then you want to talk about a mess. I mean, the Texans offense, when you thought things couldn't get worse, the only good thing they had going there, Nico Collins, late in the Monday night game, left with a concussion. Obviously, going to have to monitor that throughout the week. You know the drill here. Is anybody in this Texans receiving core able to fill the void?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'll say let's start with Nico. If he's able to play, which it's going to be tough, right? A concussion on a short week. But if he's able to play, I mean, even Nico, how good do we really feel here? Like, he's getting the targets, but they're like empty targets. Where's the connection? What has happened here? I'm going to say Nico. I mean, this isn't like a great matchup. It's not a horrible matchup. If he plays, I'm going to say solid, but I'm going to say like risky solid, honestly. And then the other wide receivers, I don't think so. I can barely trust Nico. How am I going to trust the other guys?
Yeah, exactly. I get it. A lot of teams are off. Sneaky flex, you could maybe talk me into a Higgins or Noel, or who knows if Kirk is even playing. But again, we are really throwing darts here. There's probably a better option. And like you said, Nico, even if he's a full go, very risky solid. Everyone else, I can probably ignore. Now we got Browns versus Patriots in Cleveland. I don't know if we can even say they have an alpha, but I guess Jerry Jeudy is the most recognizable name that we have to discuss.
I mean, come on. What do we like? Yeah, they're going to probably have to throw more than they did last week, but does it even matter? No.
It does not matter. Now the Patriots definitely matters. Got a couple players here of interest. Patriots, McDaniels here, they are passing the ball way over expectation. One of the more pass-heavy teams when they don't have to in those neutral situations. And so we got Stephon Diggs looking good. Kayshon Boutte now doing something in consecutive weeks. So how do you feel about him in this matchup?
Well, I feel really good about Diggs this week. You look at it, the Browns play the fourth most man and third most single high. He's absolutely shredded these shells this year. He's got a 0.35 targets per route run, a 5.77 yards per route run, and a 30% first read. I think Diggs is a very high-end, solid start, borderline strong start this week. Boutte, I'm just going to say a risky flex because he's the opposite. He's been terrible against these shells. Only a 0.07 targets per route run, 1.35 yards per route run, and a 7% first read. So risky touchdown or bust flex.
Right, and even though Boutte scored that touchdown last week, only 2 catches on 2 targets. He's one of these volatile flexes with upside to be sure, but, that's pretty much it. Diggs, still looking like the guy there, 7 catches, 69 yards, solid. If he gets in the end zone, it's a big game. If he doesn't, it's still good, so I think he's solid. All right, now we got Giants versus Eagles, part 2. The last time these two divisional foes met, it was all about the Giants, but mainly it was about Scatterboo and Dart. But don't forget Wan'Dale Robinson had himself a very nice game against the Eagles. Does he do it again?
I'm not sure. Look, he's not going to get a ton of Quinyon Mitchell in this game, of course, but the Eagles defense got healthier last week. Going to even be more healthier. Now they're in Philadelphia, but he's really all they've got here, and Dart is playing well, so I think you can flex him, but I don't expect a repeat of last time.
No, of course, we don't expect exactly what happened last week. It is a road game this time. Still, the thing is with Robinson, that floor is there. 3 straight games, not just that Eagles game. 3 straight times he's gotten at least 5 catches, and he's getting at least 7 or more targets. And so he's got the floor. He's always got upside for a little bit more. Again, a lot of teams out this week. I'm going to say he's at least a solid play. All right, and then there was the AJB breakout game. It finally happened. We knew it was coming. So does this continue, right? Is it just going to keep rolling here, or is this going to go back to the old AJB?
I think it's going to keep rolling this week. I know the last time he played, these two teams played, he didn't have a huge game, but he had a nice game. But he's always much better against man coverage. Giants run the second most man. He has a 0.42 targets per route run, 4.42 yards per route run, and a 42% first read versus man. I think he's a very high-end solid start this week. And I'll say, look, Devonta Smith, I think you got to keep him solid here. He's not nearly as good against man as A.J. Brown is. But remember, in that game a couple weeks ago against the Giants, he had a huge touchdown where Jalen Hurts just absolutely overthrew him. He's always got a chance for a big touchdown.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Devonta Smith, almost as good a game as AJB last week. And here's the thing is, you got to feel good about these receivers. because they're not just able to sit back and run the ball with Saquon Barkley. Whatever's going on there, I mean, we talk about that in the running back video, but I mean, they're leaning on the passing game. They're still winning. It's not as pretty as last year, but got to feel good about both these receivers. Another divisional matchup, we got the Bucs taking on the Saints. So last week was all about who's playing, who's not at receiver for the Bucs. It's definitely cleared up this week. Emeka Egbuka, a surprise start. He should be good this week. Mike Evans definitely not playing. I'm brutal news. I mean, that season is in question now. He's definitely not playing this week. We know that. He's going to be out for a while with a broken collarbone. So just when you thought you had him back, oh no. So what does this mean? We got Egbuka. We got Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Cameron Johnson. I mean, how's this going to play out now?
Well, you got to feel good if you got Emeka Egbuka. Now, it's like the stars are just aligning for Emeka Egbuka, right? It looks like maybe, hamstring, might miss some time. Instead, he plays, and somehow Mike Evans gets hurt again. Like, sometimes the stars just align for guys. It's aligning for Egbuka this year. He's got to be a very solid start against the Saints. You got to think he's even healthier now after playing last week. And then, look, Tez Johnson, even though he doesn't profile anything close to Mike Evans, is kind of the guy who fills the Mike Evans role for some reason. So, look, against the Saints, you got to feel good about him, at least as a flex. He's scored in 2 straight games now.
Exactly. Tez has to be a flex option. You say Buka, he got a ton of targets last week, just the connection wasn't there. You figure he'll be healthier this week, and they're going to need him. That target share is massive. I almost want to go all out and say strong. I mean, how can you not start him? But maybe he isn't all the way back yet. So let's say he's high-end solid. And New Orleans, Chris Olave continues to be just that. Solid, maybe not spectacular. Is that good enough this week? And then what about Rashid Shaheed?
Yeah, I think Chris Olave, he's just one of these guys, like if you got Chris Olave, I'm not saying he's a must start, but you pretty much just start him every week, right? Like, no, he's not going to score 2 touchdowns every week like he did last week, but against this Bucs offense that I know they struggled against the Lions, I think they'll be better this week against the Saints. Probably going to have to be throwing the ball a lot. And then I'll say Shaheed, a flex. Look, last week I liked it because, the Bears play a lot of man, although the Bears didn't play a lot of man last week for some reason. The Saints, the Bucs here, there's nothing that jumps out to me like, oh yeah, this is a good Shaheed week, but he always has that big play potential, so you can flex him.
Yeah, I think the hope here is that the Bucs are putting up points unlike last week, and the Saints are going to have to pass enough. I mean, they've been passing pretty heavily for most of the season. With Kendrick Miller out, maybe they have to do it more. I would just say with Olave, give him credit because, I mean, you look at those touchdowns he scored. They weren't easy catches, right? I mean, he's not getting the ball exactly put, on dime here. And so he gets credit. He's making the plays happen. He doesn't have exactly a lot of yak on his receptions, but the target volume is there. He is solid. And Rashid Shaheed we're still waiting for that big play. And if it happens, it's great. And if it doesn't, oh well. Cowboys at the Broncos this week will be an interesting one. Great offense versus a great defense. So CeeDee Lamb, don't ask. You got CeeDee Lamb, you start him. It's fair to ask about George Pickens, though. Again, he was good last week. Did take a hit with CD back, and this is a tough matchup.
He did take a hit, only 6 targets last week. I mean, he was still good, but not like we saw with CD out. And now I'm really worried he's going to get the Surtain shadow because CD's the guy they move all around the formation, get him in the slot. Pickens is that outside guy, so I'm pretty worried here, but he still has upside. I'm going to say solid, but like risky solid this week.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair because it may not be a big week for him. The thing is, you can't put him too much lower, even though if we're nervous about what he can do. He always can make up for it on one play, right? He gets those downfield shots, right? Remember, his yard per reception was at a career high. And so I still think, despite the tough matchup and the potential of Surtain on him a lot, can't go much lower than solid. Now, as far as the Broncos receivers, you got Cortland Sutton. Marvin Mims did a little something last week. This is the Cowboys defense. Is this an obvious smash spot?
Well, we thought it was an obvious smash spot last week, and it wasn't. I mean, he was good, but not great. I do worry a little bit here because the Cowboys play the second most zone almost 80% of the time. He's much better against man than zone, but it is the Cowboys. He's still all they've got. I got to think They're not going to need to score 33 points in the fourth quarter to win the game. Hopefully they can actually be good for all 4 quarters. I got to think he's solid.
Going to be optimistic here. Again, I'm thinking game flow. Cowboys are one of those teams that always has the foot on the gas pedal. They're going to force Denver to try to pass the ball even much earlier than last week, how they were somehow behind big against the Giants. I mean, they're going to need to keep up all game long here. And so, these teams both have a pretty fast pace of play. I think that Sutton should be strong because the ceiling here is going to be sky high. Titans at Colts. All right, now it's DK time. That's Chimere DK. Hey, he actually caught his first NFL touchdown, leading receiver for the Titans. What happened to I.O. Manor, by the way? Van Jefferson was the next guy up in this offense. Calvin Ridley is still out. All that said, are you actually interested in this Titans receiving core?
I mean, you can't really be that interested, but I will say the Colts allow quite a few points to wide receivers because they are so good on offense that teams are losing and have to throw the ball late in the game. Colts underrated, one of the best teams in football right now. So I think because of that, I will say he's a very risky flex this week. He could absolutely do nothing this week, but hey, if he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver here and they have to throw it a lot, maybe. Van Jefferson, no thank you.
No, I mean, they are probably going to have to pass the ball quite a bit this week, but I don't know who's going to get the targets. Didn't think it would be DK last week. I still think he's kind of like a Rashid Shaheed, that guy who makes that big play or does very little else. I think I can just stay away. I know it's a deep bye week, but still, I'm going to look elsewhere. Now, as far as the Colts, well, also fair to question what is exactly happening here, because last week it was Downs who missed. He might be back this week, but it was Alec Pierce who led the team in receiving yards. But of course, Michael Pittman is the number 1 guy there, I think.
I think he's still the number 1 guy here. Alec Pierce can always have those big down the field plays, but that's really it here. And Josh Downs will probably play because remember, he was in the concussion protocol. Got to think he'll be cleared. I'm going to say Pittman, low end, solid. The thing is, you say Titans, great matchup, but they really don't give up a lot to wide receivers because kind of like the flip side of the Colts, they're getting crushed and teams are just running out the clock in the second half, barely having to throw the football. So I'll say low end, solid for Pittman, flex for Downs.
I'm going to say the exact same thing. I mean, like you said, this could just be all JT again. Are they really going to have to pass the ball a whole lot? Probably not. Then Sunday night, we're going to have the Packers at the Steelers. All right, so this Packers receiving core, maybe we get Christian Watson back this week, but maybe you shouldn't start him in your fantasy lineup. Who are you going to start?
Well, I think Romeo Doubs is going to be the guy I'm going to feel the best about. I'm going to say risky, solid this week. Steelers run the fourth most man and the second most single high. He leads the team in targets per out run, yards per out run, and has a 33% first read percentage against those shells. But, I mean, what's really the upside here? We know what the Packers are going to do. They're going to run it with Josh Jacobs, whether he's healthy or not, and they're going to throw it when they have to. Then, Golden, just a flex play here. Yes, he could always hit on a big play, but again, what's really the upside here? Not a ton of volume, and yeah, Christian Watson, no, way too soon, even if he plays.
Even if Watson is active, just keep in mind, guys, that we saw come back from prolonged absences like Chris Godwin. Sure, he even got plenty of targets. This does not look right. I think we got to give him a lot more time. I'll just add on to the Dobbs thing, mention him as a waiver wire ad because he isn't just touchdown or bust anymore these days. He's getting consistent target share and he's getting you a floor with his receptions. He's basically the number 1 receiver there. But yeah, this team does want to run the ball first, so just solid. And for Pittsburgh, the other DK, that's Mr. Metcalf. All right, I mean, he's technically mostly all that they got. I mean, he's the only one getting targets these days. What if Calvin Austin comes back?
Well, I think if Calvin Austin comes back, I still like DK Metcalf this week. This was surprising to me. He's actually been better against zone than man this year, which I did not expect. He's got a 0.28 targets per out run, 3.52 yards per out run, and a 32% first read versus zone. Packers play zone 75% of the time. So even though this looks like a tough matchup on paper, I think DK will be fine. He's solid. Austin's the opposite. He's actually better against man. So even if he plays, I'm just going to say risky flex.
Right. Even if he plays, I mean, Metcalf is by far the target leader here. And look, got to give him credit. He's been good. In fact, he's the leader Among all receivers in yak per reception, he's making the most of the targets he gets. It's not a great matchup, but he's got to be at least solid. And on Monday night, we're going to have the Commanders taking on the Chiefs, possibly without Jaden Daniels, possibly without Terry McLaurin, and then who knows about Deebo Samuel. There's a lot of ifs here going on for Washington, so let's run down all the hypotheticals.
Well, I mean, remember, Terry McLaurin was kind of started the practice last week, so I feel like we might see him this week, but I don't feel great. I mean, the Chiefs have two very good outside corners in McDuffie and Watson. They're on the road. It's probably going to be Marcus Mariota. I'm just going to say a flex. And then same thing, if Deebo plays, how healthy is he really? Tough matchup here. Just a flex. And by the way, if we're still getting questions about Luke McCaffrey, I'm just going to ask why. Why are you even holding Luke McCaffrey at this point?
Yeah, I think that's dead here. And Chris Moore, I mean, come on. Maybe last week because it was the Cowboys on the road against the Chiefs. Barely want to start any of these Commanders. I mean, McLaurin is at least a flex, like you said, if he's good to go. And then Deebo, I guess, has to be. But I wouldn't even feel that great about him either. And for the Chiefs, I mean, look, Rashee Rice reasserted the fact that he's the number one receiver there. You're starting him. So the rest of the guys here weren't really that great. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, I guess he did score. Juju Smith-Schuster, what are you feeling this week?
Yeah, I felt good about Worthy last week, and it didn't happen, but I feel good about him again. Look, the Commanders run the 8th most man in single high versus those Shells. He's got a 0.32 targets per hour run, 3.43 yards per hour run. I mean, he's risky because Rashee Rice got all the targets and all the targets close to the end zone and in the end zone, but I think there's enough upside here. I'm going to say risky, solid. Look, can Hollywood keep it going? Like, what, 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games? I don't know, but probably worth a flex this week. Juju, nah, I don't need to find out here.
Well, the thing with Hollywood is he's getting targeted, and not just, those first couple of weeks, when all these guys were out, right? Rice was suspended and Worthy was hurt. So far this season, Hollywood Brown has the 3rd most targets in the money zone. He's getting those end zone targets. It doesn't mean he's going to score a touchdown for sure, but at least he's got that flex upside because of that. I think Worthy's just a flex this week too. I mean, again, Rice, Kelsey, we got so many mouths to feed. I don't feel like this is going to be a shootout because Jaden Daniels is hurt, all these receivers are hurt, and so I felt better about last week's matchup because I know the Raiders would allow the Chiefs to pretty much pass with ease. I just don't know if I feel that this week with Worthy, but he's still flex worthy. All right, don't forget to catch the running back start sit, quarterback, tight end, everything you need for week 8. It's right here.